All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the totally surprising psychological mechanisms driving our urge to toss things out. We see it literally everywhere lately, right? Entire streaming empires are built around tidying up. There are endless articles on minimalism and just this massive cultural push to purge our belongings. But today, we're going to look at the actual science behind this whole phenomenon. Like, why does throwing things away feel so incredibly good to some people while it feels utterly agonizing to the rest of us? We're going to explore the hidden personality traits and, yes, the surprisingly dark side of declutter.
Think about it for a second. You know exactly the kind of person I mean. Do you have that friend who gets genuinely, almost weirdly excited about throwing things away? The one who treats a trip to the charity shop with a trunk full of old clothes like it's absolute Christmas morning? Well, believe it or not, they aren't just naturally tidy. They're actually experiencing a literal drug-like high, and science can completely prove it. It's not just a preference for neatness, it is a powerful biological response.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that tossing out that old ratty jumper from 2019 triggers the exact same dopamine chemical in the brain as eating a piece of chocolate or mindlessly scrolling through TikTok. It's a genuine neurochemical reward. They aren't just cleaning up their room, they're slowly, methodically training their brains to actively crave order. The act of discarding basically becomes the trigger for a biological rush of satisfaction. Honestly, once you realize this, you'll never look at those famous tidying gurus the same way again.
This brilliantly illustrates the massive divide between us. On one side, you've got people who have literally trained their brains to crave the dopamine hit of a newly emptied space. On the other side, well, you have the rest of us, who might actually have a minor emotional breakdown trying to part with a faded concert ticket from 2007. So why is there such a massive gap in how we process our physical stuff? Well, it all comes down to how our brains handle the physical world around us.
So, let's move right into Section 1, the science of cognitive load.
Psychologists use this term cognitive load to describe the absolute limit on how much visual information your brain can actively process before it starts feeling completely overwhelmed. Think of your brain a bit like a computer's RAM. It only has so much working memory available at any given second. When your environment is just packed with visual stimuli, your brain is constantly scanning, processing, and trying to make sense of it all. It's draining your processing power without you even realizing it's happening.
Every single object sitting out in the open is just another tiny, exhausting task your brain has to manage simultaneously. It all happens in the background. You walk into a room and your brain immediately starts firing. Should I deal with that pile of papers? What about those shoes left by the door? Oh my gosh, is that a random receipt from 2015 sitting on the counter? It is an exhausting way to live. But people who love to declutter have discovered a mental loophole that the rest of us entirely missed. A totally fascinating Princeton study proved this beautifully. They found that physical clutter directly competes for your attention, which actively decreases your cognitive performance and raises your stress levels. Basically, a messy room isn't just ugly, it's actively draining you. When declutterers clear their physical space, they're simultaneously clearing their mental space. They literally feel mentally lighter and less stressed the absolute second their visual environment is cleared.
Which brings us to Section 2, the orderliness personality trait. You see, it's not just about the environment. It's deeply tied to our innate personalities. People who love decluttering instinctively leverage their natural orderliness. Actually, this is a subtrait of a major personality category called conscientiousness. It's the exact same overarching trait that's directly linked to high self-discipline and long-term thinking. This means they possess the psychological hardware to prioritize the future clarity of an empty room way above the immediate comfort of holding on to a familiar object.
But here's where things get really interesting. Section 3, the twist: liberators versus chasers.
Let's dive into the slightly darker side of this behavior, because not all decluttering is created equal. On the surface, the end result might look identical. You get a perfectly clean, minimalist living room. But the psychological drivers behind getting there, they can be polar opposites. You've got Type 1, the liberators, and Type 2, the chasers. One represents a healthy detachment, and the other, well, it represents a much darker, compulsive loop.
Let's start with Type 1, the liberators. These people declutter, and they genuinely feel lighter afterward. They aren't deeply attached to stuff because they've internalized a really vital lesson. Memories live in our minds, not in physical objects. So they easily keep what truly matters, they release what doesn't serve them, and then they just move on. It is a wonderfully balanced, healthy, and frankly, annoyingly well-adjusted way to manage a home.
But then, on the flip side, we have Type 2, the chasers. These declutterers are caught in a looping cycle. Step 1. They declutter specifically for that intense dopamine rush we talked about earlier.
Step 2, they inevitably fill that shiny new empty space with brand new purchases. And step 3, they declutter again to chase that exact same feeling. They aren't actually finding freedom from their possessions, they're just caught chasing a high they can never quite sustain.
For chasers, honestly, it isn't really about freedom at all. It's entirely about control. When life outside their front door feels chaotic, unpredictable, and totally overwhelming, controlling their immediate physical environment becomes an intense coping mechanism. The act of decluttering itself stops being a tool for peace and becomes just another form of clutter. It's just mental clutter instead of physical clutter.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 4, Finding True Clarity.
This is the ultimate question you need to ask yourself about your own habits. I absolutely love this framing. Decluttering should feel like opening a window, not tightening the rules on yourself. It perfectly captures the profound difference between genuinely letting go to reduce your cognitive load and simply imposing strict, rigid control over your environment just to cope with anxiety. It should bring a breeze of fresh air into your life, not put you in a minimalist straitjacket.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to kind of self-diagnose. The next time you look around a messy room and feel that sudden, overwhelming urge to just grab a trash bag and bin absolutely everything you own, pause for a second. Ask yourself, am I doing this to create genuine space for mental clarity, like a liberator? Or am I just acting like a chaser, seeking the temporary dopamine hit of a perfectly empty shelf? Figuring out your type might just change everything about how you navigate the chaos of life.